We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves. We making major moves. We going all in, like we got nothing to lose. We making moves. We making major moves.
What is up, everybody? I'm Mr. Man. Welcome back to my channel. Today is more of a somber day for me. One of my good friends, Nick, here. We had done this podcast, this show together about 9 months ago. Yesterday evening, he had lost functioning of his liver or kidneys and passed away. Sad story. 60-year-old gentleman. He looks a bit older. He didn't do the greatest of job taking care of himself. So what had happened? Him and his wife, they had come down from northern. So they came originally from Ottawa area, then moved up to northern Ontario. Moved down to the same town that I live in. We got to know each other. They worked with me at the airport. And while we were there, we got to know each other. We hung out. We got to know each other really well. Found out he has a podcast there. Learned about him and his podcast and his show. And then him and I connected. We had a lot of plans to connect. Not just for the show, but as friends behind the scene as well. So they had gotten he was in the Navy growing up. And he's always wanted to, disappear. Buy a boat, live on a boat, him and his wife. So it was last year they had achieved that dream. They had purchased a boat, a nice boat. I don't even know what type of boat it is, but it's not like a little tin boat. It's a boat that you live on, right? A big boat, meaning when it pulls into the dock, it's above the dock, a couple feet, like 10, 20 feet above dock. So they had moved out to BC. They were in the Souk area and celebrating. And his wife had left him, and he was on the boat. And the story is that when she had come back, he was at that point laying on the dock in a pool of blood. Speculation is what to find out and determine what happened, uncertain what happened. You can spend your life trying to figure out what happened, but it doesn't solve or change the fact. Still alive, and he was now in the hospital, making strides to get better, being receptive, moving feet, eyes blinking, and then the liver or kidneys began to fail. And that was just recently now, because he's been in the hospital for months. So recently now, the kidney began to fail. And this morning, I got the text message saying that he had passed away. So Nick, tonight's show is for you, my man. A lot of love, a lot of respect.
I'm just going to do my best not to laugh every time I look to my right.
That's because you know me.
I know.
What's up, guys? This is Mr. Man coming at you again. Welcome to my channel. I have with me Nick Vandergracht. He's the host or co-host of the Nick and Joe show. Look it up. I'll put a link in that in my description there. But today we're here because he has an awesome point in terms of his political view. Him and I don't always share the same point of view on things, and that's what's great because we can converse back and forth.
Imagine that.
But it's changed though. It's changed in this day and age. Because
I am making headway. Yes, I'm making headway.
And it's changed because if you don't have the similar political views or views on anything, people tend to separate, or the friendship doesn't work anymore in this day and age now. It's the strangest thing.
I think that's more a sign of insecurity.
Yeah, and I want to say we are heading back to that time again. You're going to start seeing something happen. Some black swan of sorts come out. I've shown you guys the PDFs of the SPARS pandemic, 2025 to 2028. It takes place in the US with the president, a male president and a female president, and how it goes down in March and then begins to show in November, because families get together in October, November, when they can commingle and get this disease, this virus, and then there's a 10-day lapse before it even shows, and then they go and see other people back to work, see other family members and whatever have you, and then it spreads that way. And it's been touted to be 20 times more deadlier than COVID. That's not what tonight's video is about. We are talking about global layer 1 blockchains here. So Project Guardian Global Layer 1 is an initiative led by the Monetary Authority of Singapore to explore the design of an open digital infrastructure that will host tokenized financial assets and applications. It aims to facilitate seamless cross-border transactions and enable tokenized assets to be traded across global liquidity. The project is a collaborative effort with the international policymakers and financial institutions, including, take note of these names, BNY Mellon, DBS Bank, JP Morgan, MUFG. It is part of MAS's broader effort to catalyze the institutional adoption of digital assets, unlock liquidity, and create new investment opportunities. So here we are. What is a global layer 1? It differs from a traditional blockchain in its focus on creating an open digital infrastructure that enables cross-border transaction and global liquidity pools. Unlike traditional blockchains, GL1s is designed to bring markets together with similar principles, allowing any end user to access the network provided they complete the necessary KYC requirements. This emphasis on openness and accessibility sets GL1s apart from traditional blockchains, making it potentially a quasi-public blockchain, like using a proof of authority consensus mechanism. In contrast, traditional blockchains primarily focus on processing on-chain transactions and serving as the public ledger's source of truth. Just on-chain does not include off-chain. So, last year in October, crypto firm Ripple secures Singapore payments license. Why is this important? I don't even want to read that. Why is this important? Because Singapore's MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, to explore global layer 1 blockchains, tokenization with BNY Mellon again, DBS Bank, JP Morgan, MUFG. There it is right there. The Unified Ledger. Unified Ledger, okay? Look at these names. Today, the Monetary Authority of Singapore announces a significant expansion of its Project Guardian, which explores tokenization using public blockchains. The most significant aspect is a new initiative called Global Layer 1. It's designed as an open digital infrastructure enabling cross-border transactions and global liquidity pools. BNY Mellon, JP Morgan, DBS, and MUFG are involved. Okay, so we saw who just received their license there in October 2023. Here's the MAS. We've gone over this one before. I can't zoom in. This is Project Ubin. All right. A report developed with the contribution of Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, BCS Information System, Credit Suisse, DBS Bank, HSBC, JP Morgan, MUFG, OCBC Bank, R3, Singapore Exchange, and UOB Bank. Now, where I was looking at was down here. And why this is important, if I zoom in here, it allows me. There we go. So what it says here, my highlight's gone. How terrible is that? So, there we go. Another key consideration is that the identity of the users making transaction is verified, streamlining KYC process and leading to greater fraud prevention. The prototype integrates Ripple and Stellar blockchains platforms to enable a person-to-person or P2P transaction across geographies. DLT offers significant benefits to both P2P and business-to-business payments in terms of cost savings, increased efficiency, and improved security. Cross-border payments have plenty of room for innovation, and the future looks bright for DLT with this use case. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. So here we have Project Ubin by the central bank again, by MAS. Project Ubin is a collaborative project with the industry to explore the use of blockchain and DLT for clearing and settlements of payment and security. So we've gone through all the phases already, enabling cross-border ecosystem. They are ready to go. MAS and Temasek jointly released a report in 2020, long ago. And we're learning here about Project Guardian. So here, JPM unlocking 120 billion value in cross-border payments. That's with a B, B, not an M, with a B, with a B. That's the kind of money that I want a part of. So as we're looking here, this is all about the MCBDC, the multi-CBDC design and implementation, targets, implications to existing business model. I believe I've been through this one before as well, which you guys here. We're going to jump down to it. And it just says Ripple, utilized for cross-border payments infrastructure, intended to use currency, cryptocurrency XRP as the settlement. At this point in time, the end results were high volatility of XRP, leading to limited willingness from banks in using it to facilitate payments. Relatively high cost owing to spreads between fiat and XRP. Okay, so here we go. Here's the central bank's initiative. Here we have Project Ubin, which we'd gone through already with the MAS and Canada, or the BOC, and they are exploring bilateral CBDCs, and we saw that uses Ripple and Stellar. Project Inthenon Lion Rock, now known as the Mbridge. Project Dunbar, remember this name, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, South Africa, exploring full-scale MCBDC platform. We know Project Mbridge to be going live in 2024. Okay, off the top of my head, I don't remember the date, but it is going live 2024 as an MVP, minimum viable product. So just to add some credibility to what I'm saying, Mbridge MVP is planned to be launched in the middle of 2024. So sometime in June, July possibly. Mbridge platform, a China-led global central bank digital currency initiative. And on there you'll have the MCBDC, which is the multi-CBDC. Is intended to address insufficiencies in cross-border payments and is being developed under the umbrella of the Hong Kong BIS Innovation Hub. I'm convinced that CBDCs could bring transactional cash, here we go, management to the next level from the standpoint of accessibility, being able to access liquidity in their accounts without cutoffs and cross-border delays, convertibility, being able to convert to different currencies at will. And what that means is the singleness of money, enabling them to manage liquidity in smaller sets of currencies, reachability beyond just bank accounts, and traceability, being able to have a clear trail of funds. So back on the singleness of money here, on November 6th, the BOE put out a paper regarding systemic stablecoin arrangements and the singleness of money. The singleness being the oneness of money. It must all seem like the same, the continuity of it. The BOE aims to preserve the singleness of money by ensuring the systemic payment stablecoins are fully interchangeable with other forms of money at par. $1 means $1, $2 means $2, etc. In terms of like going from stablecoin to traditional TradFi, traditional financing at that point. The singleness of money refers to the principles that all forms of money should have the same value, be generally accepted as a means of payment and interchange without the loss of value. So this is just a snapshot of the PDF they put out. So it is now a regulatory regime for systemic payment systems using stablecoins and related services. Stablecoins used in systemic payment systems would fall into this inside money category and would be subject to the bank's regulatory regime set out in this discussion paper. So that would make them, in a sense, almost a narrow banking system, which means they'd have to comply with banking regulations, including the requirements that they are backed by central bank deposits. In September 2022, Ripple had written to the HM Treasuries, Her Majesty's Treasury, which is in the UK, regarding XRP and the singleness of money on Ripple's platform, the XRPL. I'll just read the beginning here to you guys. Ripple Lab Inc. welcomes the opportunity to feed into the Treasury Select Committee's call for evidence on the state of the crypto asset industry crypto assets' role on the future economy, and the regulatory response that will enable the UK to become a global leader in standard settings through empowering these technologies to thrive while protecting consumers and businesses alike. As a strong advocate for robust, sensible regulations, we have been encouraged by the UK's government and UK Parliament's approach to crypto assets and are supportive of efforts to raise awareness of the multifaceted roles that blockchain technologies and crypto assets may play in the future British economy. The Financial Services and Markets Bill, HM Treasury's composed Crypto Assets Engagement Group, and the Financial Conduct Authority, also known as the FCA, regulatory sandboxes are all encouraging signs that the UK government is approaching the sector with the necessary openness and seriousness. We appreciate the future efforts still to come. And then they start going to talk about Ripple as a company and what they adhere to already, and XRP and what XRP is, and RippleNet, and how the two of them intermingle together through XRP's ledger, right there, through the XRP ledger. The XRP ledger is the true asset in XRP's in Ripple's software ecosystem. XRP is another asset on top of the asset, the singleness asset in the XRPL. XRPL facilitates the singleness of money in terms of having stable coins, tokenized deposits, and CBDCs as well, which goes into the traditional financing at that point. The singleness, the oneness of money, and XRP will potentially be utilized to be that intermediary, facilitating all those FX swaps, all those real estate sold and bought and traded and everything else. That's the intermediary in the middle. Okay, so just jumping back to this JPM PDF here, we're going to start at Dunbar here. So Model 3 full-scale MCBDC, multi-CBDC, introduces a single platform for a multilateral corridor, which serves as a shared settlement platform for multiple jurisdictions. This helps resolve the scalability constraint evident in Model 2. However, it mandates coordination at the highest level on topics of government and the setting of harmonized legal and regulatory standards. Example initiatives of this kind are MBridge, or MCBDC Bridge, MBridge, project by the Bank of Thailand, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, People's Bank of China, and Central Bank of United Arab Emirates. And the BIS-led Project Dunbar, which includes the Reserve Bank of Australia, Bank of Negara, Malaysia, MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, and South Africa reserves. We're in this PDF here. I believe I showed you guys this months ago. Global Economic Outlook from June 2023 from CNB, which is a Czech national bank. I'm not talking about the frictionless. Here's frictionless remedies. You can see them talking about Ripple and Stellar. There's also the reason why the typical blockchain developing, Ripple and Stellar, and other fintech enterprises that are waging inroads into the cross-border remittance domain. And then they talk about these companies which are more than likely using them for cross-border payments. That's not where I want to go. Right here. So concurrently, efforts to improve cross-border payments have been developed in the private sector. Examples: corporate DLT payment initiatives include RippleNet, Stellar, Partier, Finality. The latter two are example of solutions. So the latter two would be Partier and Finality, are by bank consortiums employing permissionless blockchains, either fully or at least partially. So those two are employing or utilizing permissionless blockchains. So the permissionless blockchains will be the XRPL and Stellar's protocol at that point. The motivation of the banks is different to that of the official sector and the retail segment. Faced with the ongoing encroachment of DLT in the payments domain, they need to be prepared for a period of uncertain duration when multiple technologies, institutions, and standards will compete for market dominance. That's where we're at now. and familiarize themselves with coming alternatives in advance. Partier is, by its own definition, a blockchain-powered platform for value exchange that is an interbank DLT based network. It supports multi-currency payments starting with the US dollar and Singapore dollar, with 6 more currencies: GBP, EUR, Australia dollar, JPY, China, and so China mainland and Hong Kong dollar there. Currently onboarding, it was launched in 2021 by JP Morgan, DBS Bank. Remember those names we were talking about earlier, JPM and DBS. Yep. And Temasek, we brought them up earlier as well. While Partier is a wholesale network, it also welcomes entrants that add retail payment applications on top. Payments are in commercial bank money, so M1 is commercial bank money, and M2 is what we use at that point. In the future, Partier intends also to support central bank money, which is M0, giving M0 a clearing function across settlement banks. Remember we were talking about your Singapore clearing. They were in one of the PDFs. I might have briefed over them quickly. Whereas M1 is given a clearing function within the commercial bank ecosystem. What I want to see now, just right here, it's just right here. There we go. So Partier's inception is actually related to an MCBDC experiment, Mbridge. Project Ubin, which we had gone through, run by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which utilizes Ripple and Stellar, and the Bank of Canada. It is currently involved in Project Dunbar. Project Dunbar. The MCBDC project that the central banks of Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, and South Africa, and the BIS Innovation Hub. Partier might also participate in another BIS Innovation Hub initiative, Project Meridian. So if they're going to be using Partier, nope, I cannot make that assumption. Okay, which aims to synchronize RTGS, real-time gross settlement infrastructures, which with digital asset ledgers and payment systems in various currencies. I think it's safe to mention that now, with different currencies there, the singleness of money. I want to just throw it out there. I believe it already. I haven't even done research into Project Meridian, other than just showcase it before on my page in terms of the BIS videos there. But I mean, I believe that in terms of the singleness of money and the single platforms, you're going to have the XRPL and the Stellar protocol working collaboratively together. Front end, back end, we've all heard it before. We know, we feel, we believe deep, deep, deep in us. You have the front end, that's you and I. You have the back end, bleeding from the back end to the front end, bleeding from the front end to the back end as well, depending on how the system's set up. We're just putting the pieces together here and trying to figure this all out and make it work for all of us here. I might be right, I might be wrong. At the end, we know Ripple and Stellar are involved. Partier positions itself as a network rather than a payment and settlement system. It cannot itself initiate a transaction, move, store money, or create finality. It does not collect any data. Banks have nodes on the network to make payments, implying they bear responsibility for themselves. Just jumping back here again, we'd ended off here on Ripple talking to the HM Treasuries. Moving down to number 3. In October 3rd, 2023, Ripple was awarded at Juniper's 2023 ceremony for their platform XRPL's ability to offer sustainable fintech innovation. Palau's USD stablecoin and a platinum award for its CBDC. Ripple's contribution to CBDC landscape celebrated at Juniper's 2023 awards. Ripple's contribution to the singleness of money is evident in its effort to support the seamless exchange and interoperability of different forms of money. That would also include Stellar, Algorand, all right, and Algorand. The XRPL may potentially meet the criteria for the underlying technology to facilitate systemic stablecoin. So why am I dropping ALGO in this? I do like me some ALGO. It's not a coin I typically talk about a lot, but I do talk about and mention it every now and again. But this is the reason I dropped it, because I dropped this today. This was a month ago. This right here is Dante Disparte from Circle. So he knows well all about stablecoins. He knows all about global stablecoins as well. Right? He was part of the Facebook team putting together Libra, later on named DM. And I believe that is the framework still going to be used for these global layer 1 stablecoins that we're talking about here, XRP and XLM, XDC, and potentially ALGO too. So listen to what she has to say. Her name is, I don't remember, but she was also from, hold on a second, let me pull it up for you guys. So I want to give a shout out to my man here, Mr. A. Warden's background is interesting since he's former JPM and currently affiliated with the UN. Right? Stacey Warden is the Executive Director of Global Market Development at the Milken Institute, where she leads strategic initiatives on developing capital markets, innovative finance, fintech for financial inclusion and access to capital. She co-founded a global program to train and mentor policymakers in financial policies. Like what? I don't. Yeah. Prior to the Milken, she spent 6 years with JPM in London, where she led its public sector client franchise in EMEA, and 2 years in New York in the sovereign debt capital markets team. Before JPM, she was a director at NASDAQ, where she ran its 2 markets for micro-cap companies. As the U.S. Treasurer, she ran its internal debt for nature restructuring program. Oh my God. She was also the U.S. Treasurer. And now at Algorand. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh man. In it to win it.
I would like to just read to us one more time the issue at hand, which is to unlock economic opportunities and uplift financial inclusion. And tokenized deposits, tokenized liability framework in banks is all well and good if you already have a bank account. But we're talking about the billions of people on this planet that don't have a bank account. And that's what financial inclusion is all about. It's the openness to anybody and not to have a bank tell you that you can or cannot make payments. And payments is a fundamental human right, and it can only be protected as a fundamental human right if it is on a public blockchain. The real question I think we should be asking here is, why should banks bother to do tokenized deposits at all? There is no incremental benefit at all to the way that they normally do business. It is still transferring from bank balance sheet to bank balance sheet. The history of innovation in banking for the last 20 years has just been increasing the efficiency and the speed of messaging between bank balance sheets, whereas a blockchain paradigm is a completely different paradigm. Why is it that somebody can't send a dollar from Nigeria to Malaysia without traveling through the U.S. correspondent banking system, clearing at the Fed, and traveling all the way back down again? On the Algorand blockchain, for 0.0001 algo, you can send money immediately. You can send a US dollar equivalent immediately in a matter of seconds, because it doesn't actually travel. It writes to one ledger. It's not an improvement over banking. It's a paradigm shift of banking. And it is inclusive, and it has very low transaction costs, and that enables micro payments. You cannot send a small payment over the banking system because the costs are too high.
So continuing with the singleness of money, I had my mic on mute as I was talking, so I blew that segment. I'm going to continue on here now. This is continuing on with the singleness of money here, Jenna Pache of the DEA, Digital Euro Association, and that's supposed to be Elise Suchi, Director of Policy and Regulations at the GBBC Council. And here they're talking about promissory notes, IOUs, checks, all the paper stuff. That means I owe you this still. If I give you this, it means you have money, but I owe it to you still when it finally gets there. Singleness of money.
With thinking about, what a deposit is at the outset before we get into like tokenized commercial bank money. So a deposit is a sum of money that is paid on terms under which it will be repaid with or without interest or premium at a time or circumstances agreed upon by the person making the payment and the person receiving it. So it does not refer to the provision of any property other than currency or services or the giving of a security. So that means that deposits are not bearer instruments because they are not representing an underlying asset. You're not transferring an asset when you transfer a deposit. You're transferring that sum of money which needs to be repaid. So, well, you're not transferring the sum of money. You're transferring the notion of
it's
that.
like an IOU, right?
Yes.
When I take, and this is something many of our listeners probably heard me say before, but when I take my £100 in cash that I've had stashed under my mattress or something to a bank branch, should I be able to locate a physical bank branch, and I deposit it in my bank account, I no longer own £100. What I own is now a claim against that commercial bank for the sum of £100, but which is actually no longer backed even by £100 that they hold, just sitting in a vault. It's probably because they've used it as basis for making loans and extending credit. It's now backed by about £10 in a vault, along with some other some loans and liabilities due to them, alongside a lot of prudential regulation, the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, and all the stuff that gives me trust in the financial system.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, those deposits, as we said, not bearer instruments. So they would also not be a bearer instrument really in tokenized form. They are a tokenized version of that deposit. Commercial bank money consists mainly of these deposit balances, which you can transfer either by means of paper orders or checks or electronically. So let's leave that to the side for a second.
So now that you've seen that, here is the IOU diagram, payments of $100. I had to retake this again because my mute was on. Just a diagram of Ripple's P2P network, exemplary sketch of IOU payments in XRP, usually utilizing Ripple. Here, A wants to pay B $100 USD, and that's how that would look in a roundabout way. And then we have the XRPL set up an IOU bridge. I'm looking forward to seeing all these IOU bridges that end up getting connected to it. Now, before we end off, I have another clip for you guys. This is a 15-minute clip. Trust me, you are going to want to hear this. Trust me. So on our left there, far left, this gentleman right here, this is Daniel Aiden. He was one of the originals of R3. R3 is a bank consortium put together from banks, for banks. Worked at a few other places, Bank of Canada, I believe it was. Now he is with the BIS. This individual here, I'm not sure who he is, but this individual here is Alex. He's from Convera. He's one who put this podcast together and this interview together. So shout out to my man Alex. We had a short conversation once I posted this on Twitter. But I want you guys to hear this. He had asked this question specifically for the XRP community and the XRP army. Take it away. By the way, watch this guy's face. He's got a bad poker face. He's trying to hide his mouth, trying to keep his lips shut, keep that smile at bay. His cheeks and his eyes show it all. This man Alex here plays it cool. And watch Daniel's face too. Like, you can see when he got asked the question, he's like, shit. In a good way though. Like, there's a smile that comes out and what. Check it out. I'll let you guys see it yourself.
And we talked a lot, you brought up a lot of comparisons with transportation infrastructure, highways, roads, tracks. So why don't we bring up another one, which is bridges? And it's clear that CBDCs and stable coins, I think, there's a lot of exploration with how do you connect the dots between obviously these different countries who are experimenting with CBDCs, how will they transact value between one another? The idea of bridge currency or bridge currencies being needed is certainly something that comes to mind. Can you explain, Daniel, what bridge currencies are in simple terms and what role they might play in this future multi-CBDC landscape if it does emerge? And, what really does a bridge currency in the digital first currency world look like?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to disappoint you, but I probably won't be able to answer the last part of that question. I mean, I can make some I can give a general trajectory, but I probably won't be able to answer accurately. I mean, a bridge currency, the definition is a currency that's an intermediary between two other currencies, right? So I want to move, let's say, Swiss francs to pounds. The question is, will I be able to move? Will I be able to do that one-to-one? Let's think. It's not really a conversion, right? But will I be able to find someone in the UK that wants to take my Swiss francs, and will someone in the UK find someone in Switzerland that's willing to take their pounds? So the degree to which that connection can be made with an efficient pricing structure, there's really no reason for a bridge currency. Right, because you can trade this asset against this asset, this central bank money against this central bank money. The practicality of it, though, is that if you think about the number of different currencies and how much liquidity needs to be available to make those transactions, it becomes less and less efficient because there simply often isn't enough liquidity there. And when I say liquidity, what I mean is depth of the market. It means that if I want to now send, 100 Swiss francs, maybe I'll find 100 Swiss francs for pounds. Maybe I'll find a counterparty. But if I want to send 100 million, I may not find a counterparty. So there isn't enough liquidity, maybe, between Swiss francs and pounds for me to send $100 million every day. But there may be more liquidity if we pool all of our liquidity into one type of currency. Now, there's a historical context of how that generally comes to be, how that currency comes to be. But once you pool all that liquidity, you can create more efficient pricing structures because you can say, okay, well, instead of looking for a counterparty directly, if I have the Swiss francs looking for the counterparty in British pounds, well, what I can do is just do Swiss franc dollar, dollar pounds, and Swiss franc dollar will have enough liquidity for my $100 million transaction, and pounds to dollar will have it. And then that currency becomes the bridge currency. So it's a very practical thing at the end of the day. It's really about liquidity. There's another side of it that also has to do with in what price are you going to denominate your assets. Everybody's heard about the petrodollar, so barrels of oil are being denominated in US dollars. Trade finance is generally denominated in US dollars. I mean, it's just convenient for everybody to anchor in one currency because it creates a common language. It creates a common hedging structure and risk structure. So it's really a very, very practical thing. When we look at multi-CBDC designs, and really what we're trying to look at is kind of diversification of these methods. So bridge currencies will always be there. They'll always provide a competitive exchange rate. They'll always be attractive. The reason they're there, though, is because of the deficiencies of creating sufficient liquidity, or the issues with denominating things in different asset prices because the conversion is so tricky. But if there's technologies that maybe mitigate some of those problems, I think it calls into question the relevance, the future relevance of these bridge currencies. So, I'll give you a hypothetical example. If in the future we have common platforms that are connected across economies that can solve this kind of liquidity issue between currencies, hey, if Swiss franc to pounds will give me a better rate if I do it directly against each other versus going through the dollar or the euro or the yen or any other rich currency, then that's what I'll do. I mean, it's a very, very practical thing at the end of the day. And the motivation for this is, we hear a lot of things. I think, you can look at the digital euro that talk about strategic autonomy and payments, so wanting autonomy over their own payment systems. There's a general desire by most jurisdictions to denominate their assets. Think about government bonds, think about exports, things like that, in their own price, because if you're denominating it in dollars, you're taking foreign exchange risk with your own exports in a currency that you have absolutely no control over. So there are very, very reasonable reasons to want to look at these type of tools more closely. And I mean, I can't really predict what the future will hold, but my sense is that there will be a more competitive, open, innovative approach to how we move around value. And I think that's kind of that would be really my only observation of the future going forward.
That's great. It's really fascinating. I guess my only follow-up to that would be what role, if any, I mean, you talk about bridge currencies, obviously the USD has served that role primarily for a lot of different countries. Do you see a scenario where or what sort of value might digital assets, stablecoins, CBDCs provide in improving that role of the bridge currency? Do you see them being big game changers in terms of this idea of a bridge currency when we have these digital assets in play more, and they're actually being if they're being more taken more seriously by the largest central banks around the world? Do you see them playing a serious role in those technological advances that might mitigate these problems?
So in supporting the functionality of the bridge currency?
Right, yep.
It's interesting. I mean, I'll give you an example. We released this week a project called Project Mariana. And in this project, we looked specifically at, we envision a world where CBDCs exist. And we took 3 economies, Singapore, France, and Switzerland, and pooled their CBDCs in a common kind of offshore pool that was an automated market maker. And in that automated market maker, all the currencies could trade against each other. So I bring that example as like a serious departure from the way we think about foreign exchange today. Maybe, I mean, there's a lot of value moving around in the crypto ecosystem in that type of in these type of structures. Maybe that's something that's attractive for central banks moving forward, and we're really just starting to scratch the surface of those type of tools. So my intuition is that technology is only a part of it. Technology can open up new realms of possibilities. The US dollar isn't the US dollar only because of technology, right? It has many, many other facets to it. The depth of the markets, the rule of law, many, many things create the trust in the US dollar that you have that exists around the world. Yeah. I think as the technology advances, and technology is a part of this. I don't want to minimize the technology component of this, but the technology in general is kind of equally accessible to everyone. Maybe there's slight variations in form factors. So my sense is that rising tide will kind of lift all the ships, and the competition will likely be in things that are a little bit softer. Let's call them. So I don't think you decide which bills you use based on the fabric and the feel and what they look like. I mean, at the end of the day, it's where you live and what you have access to. But even if you could choose, it's more about which central banks you engage with, where you're doing most of your business activity, and that's the currency that you choose to deal in, right? So it's a very, very practical thing. So my sense is, I don't think it's a zero-sum game between bridging structures or direct structures. I think there's a lot of space for cross-border payments, and you asked about digital assets as well. So as we create more and more type of digital assets, as we maybe tokenize our deposits, maybe hold certain types of stable coins for payment needs that are very, very specific, my sense is that all of these things will bloom. A lot of times people think about currency competition, and currency competition is very, very real. Currency competition can exist between different forms of payment within an economy. Currency competition can also exist between different central banks and different fiat issuers. So currency competition is not a new phenomenon. Currency competition will continue to exist. Technology will probably make that competition more relevant and maybe even fiercer, but the beneficiary of this competition will be the users, right? And as long as we can keep the guardrails on, as long as we can not mess it up, right? And I think, when you think about the role of the BIS and the central banking community in general, right? That is the lens through which we look at things, right? This needs to work not just on the sunny days, but on the rainy days. And on the rainy days, that's the most important time where we test whether or not these type of things have the impact that we would like them to have. So I'm generally optimistic, and I think not looking at it as a zero-sum game is very, very important. There's no reason why your wallet, there is a reason today why your wallet can't hold 50 different types of currency. I'm not sure that there's a reason moving forward why it can't. And I'm not sure there's a reason why it can't provide real-time foreign exchange depending on what you are about to buy. in the future as well, right? So just kind of open that up and say, oh, well, maybe we're actually looking at this from a relatively narrow lens, and the future of payments is much more interesting and exciting than just these tiny movements that we think about today.
That's a great way to end. Obviously, I want to get your answers to all these, but that was a great one to end on, I think. Mickey, any other last minute thoughts?
I think just one last question from me, I guess. I think a lot of, when we've been speaking, a lot of the points you've made, Daniel, have been compelling. I think there is lots of opportunities and issues to be resolved within global financial services, and CBDCs, as you've highlighted, offer lots of promise for resolving them. But as someone who's kind of on the sharp end and, looking at the optimism, the potential and so forth, what does a rainy day look like for you, right? What are in your kind of day-to-day thinkings and musings and work on CBDCs, right? What is the biggest worry you have or challenge you foresee, or the thing that you think this is the piece that we really need to get right to make it possible?
Great question.
Oh, great question. I may give you a less optimistic note to end on, but that's okay. It's good that I only have 2 minutes to answer this question. So a couple of things right off the top. Cyber risk is huge, right? Cyber risk also exists today, but as we bring more and more payments digital, as we increase access, as these things penetrate our systems more, the cyber risk becomes more and more real. We just published a report called Project Sela. That was a joint project between the Bank of Israel and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and that was looking at retail CBDCs access versus its cyber risk. So cyber risk is going to be and going to likely continue to be a huge issue. Another issue that is a lot of attention is being paid to is offline. And when I think about offline, it's not I want to buy a sandwich on an airplane that doesn't have Wi-Fi. I'm talking about earthquakes, tsunamis, whole economies that are offline for an unknown amount of time with no previous notice. That is not a simple thing to solve, and that is definitely a rainy day that needs to be thought through carefully. Privacy is another huge one. So there's a lot of reason to I don't want to say to be concerned, but there's a lot of reason to design privacy in payments very, very, very carefully. There needs to be trust that's built there, and privacy is a tricky topic because it's not just privacy at large. It's privacy of what and from whom. And if you sit down and think about that carefully, you very quickly come up with an entire matrix of privacy issues that need to be very, very carefully managed and very widely across jurisdictions as well, which may make cross-border payments a little bit tricky. The last thing is maybe a little bit of a curveball. A lot of people talk about interoperability, and interoperability is generally thought of as connecting disparate systems. And they speak of it as it only is positive. The more things are connected, the better, because we get more efficiency. When you think about your rainy day question, when you think about risk and risk spillovers, we just had the collapse of a couple of big U.S. banks. And one of the big things that we looked at the BIS was, what is the risk contagion of these type of things? And is it contained within certain economies, certain tiers of banks? So interoperability is really good, and there's a lot of force driving for interoperability. But what we need to make sure is that there's proper breakers in the system so that we don't have risk spillover, so that a bubble here doesn't make something else explode on the other side of the world. So maybe those 4 points are some things that need to be drilled down a little bit more. And we have a lot of work cut ahead of us, and we need the best and the brightest. So this has been a wonderful journey between the public and the private sector that I'm really looking forward to driving more.
Yeah, what
back
fun
to our
work to
road
be
analogy.
One of the last things that Daniel was suggesting there is ways to curb the contagion should there be a ripple effect, essentially. Circuit breakers are mechanisms used in traditional stock exchanges to suspend trading for a period of time based on market triggers, such as a significant decline, to prevent further market slides and give investors time to understand the situation and make informed decisions. They were first approved in the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission following the market crash of 1987, known as Black Monday. That the idea of implementing circuit breakers in the cryptocurrency market has sparked debate. The idea of implementing with some advocating for their introduction to prevent extreme volatility and flash crashes, while others argue that they are only suitable for monopolistic exchanges and may go against the decentralized nature of cryptocurrencies. The XRPL has been suggested to implement circuit breakers to pause trading during periods of extreme volatility, to calm markets and prevent flash crashes. The debate around the implementation of circuit breakers in the cryptocurrency market this has been 54 minutes, stems from the need to address volatility and liquidity concerns, especially after significant market sell-offs and flash crashes. While some see them as potential tool to mitigate extreme volatility, others argue that the decentralized and 24/7 nature of the cryptocurrency market may not be conducive to the use of circuit breakers, as they are traditionally used in centralized and monopolistic exchanges. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you found value in this. I'll see you on the next one.
We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves.